We're here today with a car we haven't done much with on the channel yet, which is my 91 Mustang GT 5-liter 5-speed. I imagine by the time this video comes out, I will have done some sort of introduction on this car, and there will likely already be a playlist established right there. But YouTube behind the scenes spoiler alert, this is the first video I'm actually recording on it. The reason we're doing it that way is because I have to get this car out of here for other reasons right now, and I'm gonna make a video on washing it, which you've probably already seen. However, one of the reasons we're washing it today is despite this thing being garage kept pretty much its entire life, in my part of the world, stuff even rusts in the summer. So right over there on the fender, you can see where all that paint's getting thin. There's a line of rust right there on the car, right on the fender, just before it wraps over. There's similar surface rust like that right around the fuel tank filler too. And I'm gonna attempt to convert it with this stuff, the Krud Kutter The Must for rust. Apparently this stuff is supposed to work pretty well. It's not supposed to be too hard on existing paint, because the paint on this car, this is a driver quality car, so the paint's not awesome, but it's okay. And I don't want to destroy the paint that's there. But the directions on this stuff, it says right on it, rinse the metal to break the surface tension and wash away loose dirt. So I get the impression I'm supposed to apply this stuff with the steel wet with water. And then it says all over it and all over the FAQ on their webpage that you're not supposed to let this dry out while you're working with it. So you have to keep reapplying it to keep everything wet. So since the whole car is gonna be wet anyway, and it clearly needs washed anyway, this is our goal for today, is we're gonna try and treat some of these rust areas. And after I wash it, I'll probably in localized areas dry it and maybe apply some tape to this or that to try and keep it off some of the paint and just do what I can. This stuff is very much a liquid. I can hear that, so it's probably gonna run all over the place no matter what I do, but I can try and make an effort. So the next thing you're gonna see, this car is gonna be all washed up and ready for our next step. So as you can see, she has been washed. Give you a better look at what we're going to try and fix. So what we've got going on here is just like this light surface rust that's just getting going. And I actually just picked this piece off of the hood. I don't know if that's seam sealer or just heavy paint or what, but we've got some just starting in this seam. And ideally, yeah, stuff's just popping right off. I don't know what that is, if it's paint or seam sealer. I think it's seam sealer. Yeah, that's no good. Anyway, ideally, I would just take this hood off and grind that edge and repair it, and it's probably what we'll do in the future, but not today. Then the fuel door, this was actually always been like this ever since I bought the car. Just got a little bit right there, a little bit around the fuel door itself. I don't think this is aligned very well. It might rub. But anyway, just want to try and get that slowed down if we can. I've also noticed there's some rust staining starting back here where the spoiler bolts onto the hatch lid. I've already had the spoiler off before. It's not that hard to do. I may pull it off again and try and do some preservation work under here too. And in fact, boys and girls, that is good word for the day. Preservation. This is not a restoration. That's not the idea of what I'm doing. I'm just trying to slow down a few of these issues that are going on an otherwise pretty solid 30-year-old car. As far as what I was thinking earlier about trying to tape stuff off, I just don't think that's gonna work very well. So what I'm gonna do instead is just have my water hose handy, and if things start looking like they're going poorly, I'll just start hosing things down. So I believe what I'm gonna do here is just mist everything down with water. Fortunately, I have a mist setting. I'm gonna pour some of this stuff out into my pan. I'm gonna get on it with the foam brush to spread it around. And if anything more exciting that happens, I'll let you know. I also did pick a whole bunch of that seam sealer off that seam. Almost all of it just fell right off. I don't think it says to, but shaking things up never hurts. Of course, it's got a little impossible to pop foil thingy. Seems like plenty to get started. Actually, I'm gonna start toward the top so it can run down. And something the directions for this stuff did say is once you get it wet, you don't wanna stop. You don't want it to dry out. Apparently it's supposed to like dry black if you do it right. I probably will just come back with a rag and catch that edge of the fender where I'm getting some on the paint that I would prefer not to have on the paint. And actually that pretty much is going right up to the radius of the bend anyway, so not much I can do. I do see little black remnants showing up in my bucket there. Looks like there's a little on that seam too. And maybe there too. I just spend half my life going around the car like this. Yeah, the hood's going about as well as you would expect, being that it's upside down. But we'll do what we can. They also sell like gels and stuff. So if it looks like this is a viable option, I might try some of those other products. So while that's chilling, we'll go get our fuel door. Yeah, that's just running right down the fender. So let's hope it's not gonna screw up the paint. Paint on this thing's not that great anyway. So I'm here making a mess. We may as well get these screw heads. Why not? Happy little screw heads. Okay, so for, I don't know, probably the next 45 minutes, I'm just gonna keep looping around the car doing this, and if anything interesting happens, I'll bring you back. And I completely forgot to give you guys some after shots when this was still outside where I had better light. But the short version is, that stuff works pretty well if you've got a million years to paint it on. I was at that for like 2 hours to get it where it was. Did not work quite as well on the hood, but still works. Well, better than it was. And I did not experience any of it turning black. As you can see, it all pretty much just turned white. But what it isn't is rust, or obvious rust anyway. Gas tank door turned out really nice. As you can see, all that rust is gone. Still a little bit of water in there from washing it all out. No more rust. So I like this stuff, but this is a crappy application for it. It sounds like most people put it in a spray bottle and like spray their frames with it. That sounds good. Something where every half hour you just crawl under there and spritz. Stuff like this thing, which is just a battery bracket off of my Escort. So she's pretty rusty. Let's just dump it in this stainless bucket with this stuff for a little while and see what happens. I don't think I have even close to enough left to try that, but we will. Because honestly, I kind of don't like this stuff for anything else. So maybe I'll just come back and kind of splash it around every now and then. There we go. I'll probably just swirl that around every once in a while for, next couple hours, however long I'm out here today. So after trying to keep it propped up so it stays submerged in this can and everything for about the last, 3 hours, I'm getting kind of annoyed with the process, but that's mostly just because I have, so little stuff left. I've already done the other end, and it came out okay-ish. What I will say is if you can submerge things in this stuff, it works much faster than something like Evapo-Rust. The problem is enough of this stuff to submerge parts would be $8 million from what I can tell. But I'm going to try something a little goofy. I'm going to take what I have remaining of that fluid and that clamp and throw it in this bag and see what happens. Tidbit in bag, stuff in bag. I'm going to zip her up and shake it around, try and pinch some air out, and just leave it alone like that for a while and see what happens. So, something like so. At least I won't be losing nearly as much to evaporation anymore. This stuff does like to evaporate, plus it's getting pretty warm here right now. Anyway, we'll check back up on this in a few hours. And I have completely forgotten about this thing for an entire day, twice. The results have been interesting though, and I'll show you why. One thing before we go there though, is I've discovered the hard way that stuff is very happy to etch your concrete for you. So there are a few little drips out of the bag there. There are kind of a few little drips all over the place. Yeah, that is all etched concrete. It doesn't really want to come off all that well. Personally, I'm not too worried about that kind of thing. This is a working garage. That's why I have it. That's why I rent a place that has a garage so I can work. Just don't tell the landlord that we did this. But if you care about your floor more than I do, be advised. But the most interesting thing I found is that this stuff is kind of prone to re-rusting. And I didn't want to open the bag to disturb this even more, but I had this portion of the bracket completely submerged for several hours. And with it back out, but still in this environment, it has begun to corrode again. And if I kind of dunk it around and wet the rust, it looks a little better, but it's still pretty clearly there. Anyway, I'll get this guy out of the bag, we'll rinse it off and take a better look at it, because I believe we're done with this experiment now. Here you go, and it is still wet just from water from the sink. I just blotted off, so it is a little darker than it probably would be otherwise. But there you can kind of see what I'm talking about, where it's got this pitted kind of rust, whereas this end is like completely clean. This would have been the corner that was submerged a moment ago, but I have had every corner of this thing submerged over the last couple days. And I should also add that, I understand they don't tell you to do this with it. I'm just screwing around, seeing what's going to happen. But you can really see back here where it's kind of been, I guess, re-rusting. But this is also where there's still some residual paint on it. So it could be having a reaction with the paint, and the paint's peeling off, and water's getting in behind it. It could just be some weird stuff going on. But this was not a thing until I had it in the bag for at least 1 day. Interestingly, the paint remaining on this crossbar, and this is all in pretty good condition. No problems with it. So whatever's going on is just going on at the, we'll say, sheet metal interfaces of this clamp. All in all, it did okay. As far as this thing goes, the next thing I'm gonna do with it is take a wire wheel to it and just paint it. But it served as a fun test example for our rust removal experiment here, so it was worth the time to play with it. And that is what happened. Nothing real elaborate, just a quick rattle can job. Speaking of what happened, it has been about 5 months since I treated this fender, and the car's just sat here in the garage since then. And that is how it's holding up. I can see some of the rust coming back through, but you know, a lot better than where we started. But like right there, it's actually starting to pick up some color. You can see it starting to turn orange again. I think that is where it was the worst, but I didn't top coat this or do anything else. But again, this has also been sitting in a garage for 5 months. It hasn't been rained on or anything in that time. So make of that what you will. And that's going to conclude this video. As always, guys, appreciate you stopping in for this one. We'll catch you on the next one. I'm Max, that's Saddington Bear, and we make videos like this all the time. Here are a couple links to some other videos we've made, and we really appreciate you guys stopping in.